It is life-changing, and it's going to move you forward. You don't want to miss this. If you have the opportunity to get to an event, you don't want to miss that. You don't want to miss getting to a clubhouse either, or a phone call on the Reach Out program. They're all vital to keeping our Neo Think moving forward. And that's what I wanted to share, Charlie.
Thank you. Yep,
You're welcome.
It is, and I think this is going to be different since we're taking this on the road for the first time instead of just doing it in New York, New Jersey. So I would imagine there's going to be a lot of first-time people there who haven't been to a summit or a workshop that we have done. So I'm excited about meeting a lot of new people. So I think it's going to be a great time. Obviously, they always are. And we know how to do these things, so everything will come out all right. Anything else, Juanita?
I think we have that covered, unless you think of something, Charlie. I think we got that all covered. There's going to be a lot going on in San Diego. I know that. I've been there before. Martha has gave me a tour of Coronado, and you just don't want to miss out on San Diego. That's what I want to add right now.
No, I'm excited because I haven't been there. I've been to California quite a few times, but I've never been to San Diego.
San Diego is like San Diego's separate from California, Charlie. It's like it's an island unto itself. It's very beautiful, really.
Yeah.
You'll really enjoy it. And you'll see me again. You'll see me again. You'll see all the other members. So you better get out.
That's worth the trip right there. There you go.
Yes.
All right. We're going to cover tonight is Chapter 19. Last week we did Chapter 18. What is the Illuminati and what is Zion? And this week Chapter 19 is called Dumping Gory Politics. And I just want to recap a little bit of last week, because it's interesting how he ties these in together. And gory, I don't know if anybody, I imagine some of you know what gory means, but I'm going to, basically what gory means is it's a Jewish name for a non-Jew. Okay? And that's gory politics. Because when we talked about the Illuminati last week, a lot of the Illuminatis out there, centuries ago, a lot of them were started by, obviously, all of them have been started by business people. And most of those business people are Jewish. And as we talked last week about how they were playing like the game of poker out there, and they're calling our bluff because they're saying one thing, but they're really doing something else. Because most people think the Illuminatis are bad. Frank R. Wiles goes into detail that the Illuminatis are good, but they're just acting as if they're not. And everybody thinks that, well, these all the Illuminatis are all Jewish business people, and all they want to do is take over the world, that one world order, blah, 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 blah. Well, at this point, they want you to think that. It's not. They will stand up and one day come out and talk about what they can do for us. And it's going to give us the freedoms that we always have wanted. And it will and it will really help the situation of these politics going crazy. So that's basically, and in fact, he covers that in this chapter 19. It's a follow-up to that. But he called that the most moral men on earth are basically the people who started these Illuminatis, because they reflect the most responsible and moral forces on earth. Forces designed to bring wealth and happiness to our world by breaking the institutions and race systems that support this parasitical, drained, death-oriented anti-civilization. That's pretty straightforward right there. So that's what they're doing. So now he wants to talk about dumping these politics. And he starts out saying that, the real physical world resides in a beautiful century of rationality by the objective laws of nature. And for the last 24 centuries, great minds have opened one door after another, solved one deep mystery of nature after another, only to discover whole new and deeper facts hidden beneath the ever-evolving forces within the unchanging laws of nature. And he talks about Newton, and he talks about Einstein and all these other people. And he talks about a Nobel Prize winner called Leon Lederman. He was a physicist, and he came out with a book in 1993 called The God Principle. Or I'm sorry, The God Particle. And it's metaphorically named the ultimate nature of existence is the God particle. And then people have asked, why is it called that? And basically, what Leon Lederman said was, because I don't think he really agreed with this that much, but it's basically, it's two atoms basically colliding against each other, and it really can cause a lot of damage to Earth. If that, they actually made those tunnels, I forget what they're called, under the Earth, and they're miles long, and they speed them up, and then they collide. And he basically called it the goddamn particle, but they shortened it and just gave it the God particle because he thought it was a bunch. He was talking about it, and he's not the biggest fan of it. But then Frank R. Wiles goes into, and then he says, beneath and above the particle light, gravity units controlled by conscious beings, free of gory politics. Okay, in other words, science is science. And once you politicize anything, it's not doing us any good. So he says, non-reality and the subjective law is that the unreal political world of the Goyim hides the ugly irrationality embodied by subjective laws born of politics. I mean, he really does go after the politicians, as usual here. And he starts talking about, he says, anybody from Caligula to Hitler to the Clintons. He says, today, as in Germany 60 years ago, the process of lawmaking is driven by politics rather than by objective reality. Indeed, most law today arises from arbitrarily political correctness and a drum roll of forced-back political agenda laws. And he talks about the FDA, the DEA, IRS, INS, the EPA, all of that. And he says, also considers today's politics that also affects healthcare, food diets, abortion, religion, education, the media, drugs, tobacco, law enforcement, crime prosecution, immigration, the environment. So basically, our whole world today is really politicized. Nothing is free of it. All right? Just look at the arguments today about how the Earth is heating up and how we are destroying our planet, or look at the impeachment process, which is totally unreal. But everything is based on all that. And then he has a footnote here, and he says, I'm not going to name all these names because some of the names I don't even know how to pronounce, but he says, consider the following, though, because he was talking about the gory politics and how they came about. But he says, consider the following. How many Platos, Alexander the Great, Caesars, Genghis Khan, Napoleons, Lincolns, Lenins, Woodrow Wilsons, Hitlers, FDR, Stalin, Pol Pot, Castro's, and then he finishes up and he says, and Bill and Hillary Clinton. And the question at the end is, how many of these people were Jewish? None. So he's stressing the point again that Illuminatis are good, bad, but they're playing the game right now so that they can stay in the game. And then they can take that over, and then they can eliminate a lot of the politics out there. He says, the cure for insanity in government is simple. Depoliticize, depoliticize, and depoliticize. He says, and how will that cure arise? Considering then there's a quote here that goes for 3 pages. I'm not going to read the whole quote, but it came from an article that was published 5 months before the first neo-tech domino fell in America. 5 months before America's November 1994 elections, and that's when this came out. And it's talking about obsoleting the criminal-minded Goyim. The most valuable Goyim of the 90s are the Clintons, faking compassion and using demagoguery that promote envy against the productive class, against the competitive producers of wealth and jobs. Moreover, the fake compassion of the Clintons is nothing more than a 3-step toll booth compassion. Number one, they collect these self-serving tolls by forcing the productive class into financing and expanding parasitical elite class through political agenda laws. They extract financial tolls by draining the only real benefactors of the needy and society, the competitive value and job producers. And 3, they hit the jackpot with a neo-cheating livelihood with forced back political power and praise-filled honors. So this was written by the Illuminati. I don't know which one, he doesn't say. But it just keeps going and going about, we have to see these politicians for who they truly are. But I mean, think about this though. What can we do in this country today that we don't have to deal with the government? I don't know of anything out there that we can do that doesn't involve government. Why do we have to get a marriage license? Why do we have to have a registration for our car? Why have to go? You have to get a license to go fishing. We have to have. Everything's done through the government. We can't do anything without government interference. That's obscene. And this is supposed to be freedom? It's not. I mean, just look at from when we were kids until now, and how many freedoms we have lost since then. Because there's not many freedoms left here today. But now he wants to, now Frank R. Wiles goes into, he has a 7-point agenda for America's first neo-tech president. And this is where he starts, he starts talking about the prime law. But the 7 things he has here is, number 1, immediately pardon and free all individuals convicted of crimes created from political agenda laws. That'll probably release half the population of prisons right now. Number 2, veto and work to repeal every political agenda law passed by Congress, current and past. 3, work to end all welfare and social programs. Replace Clintonian toll booth compassion with genuine compassion. 4, which I've always believed in, even before I came here, privatize Social Security. Finally meet all obligations by paying back with market rate interest all monies paid into Social Security. Finance this payback by selling government businesses and assets. I remember how to be 20 years ago or so, and I was reading this article about Chile. And Chile decided to have people take the option of the government taking Social Security out of their paychecks, or the people could invest that money themselves. And in the first year, not many people did that. They just kept it there with the government. But slowly, over the next 5, 6, 7, 10 years, 90-some% of workers in Chile were investing their own money. and making so much more by doing so. It's a great success down there. And it's been mentioned up here, but we haven't done it yet. And Social Security, it's supposed to go broke in another few years or so. It's just, and how much do we get back? Come on. Anyway, number 5, permit government activity only in the areas of national defense, local police, in other words, protection-only government. 6, replace the irrational envy-based income tax with a rational consumption tax, a national sales tax. Then phase out sales taxes with major budget reductions, market rate user fees, and the golden helmet. Use revenues only for the national defense and protection of individuals and their property from objective crime. And 7, help parasitical elites, neo-cheaters, and professional value destroyers convert to competitive value producers in the civilization of the universe. All right, that's the 7 steps that we must take. And then he starts to quote the prime law. This is not the whole prime law, but I'm just going to do Article 1, 2, and 3 real fast here. No person, group of persons, or government may initiate force, threat of force, or fraud against any individual's self or property. Article 2, force may be morally and legally used only in self-defense against those who violate Article 1. And then Article 3, no exceptions shall exist for Articles 1 and 2. Now, there's so much there that I could talk about the prime law for days. And it's a shame we haven't talked about it in a long time because the TVP is on hold. But the prime law, everybody has to follow the prime law. Not just us ordinary citizens out here who pay all the taxes, but politicians too. Everybody follows the law. No exceptions. And when all of you, and since it's in the beginning, it's only going to be a protection-only government. In other words, we still have the police, we'll still have the armed services, we'll still have the courts, and that's the only thing that we're paying for as far as taxes are concerned. But basically, think of the power that we have then. If those people aren't following the prime law, we can replace them. That's simple. Because they're not following the law. If our DVP president is breaking the prime law, guess what? He's out of there. Even now, when it comes down to in your town, okay? Because this has always been a pet peeve of mine. The streets in I know all the states around here, the streets are bad, potholes, and they haven't been fixed in years. And down here, it's just as bad as New York's bad. I know the Northeast is pretty bad. I don't know about some of the other states, but it seems like mostly everywhere there's some bad streets out there. And I can never understand that a lot of the times they'll patch up a pothole, but they won't repave the street. So the street always gets the same potholes every year. They're always bouncing around. Your car's bouncing around. But now, if you open, but these guys can't get fired because they don't do a good job. Because they don't do a good job, they get paid no matter what, right? And nobody says anything. But imagine you live in a town, and now the town goes out and they hire a business, a company, to take care of the streets. And if they do a great job, they just keep taking care of their streets for you. If they don't, then we just say you're fired, and we get somebody else to do it. Now, you think you're going to get good roads all the time? You will now, because the guy wants to stay in business. That's just so simply put, but that's where, so we would volunteer to pay money for that, because now we're going to get good streets. All these things where you will start breaking down the government. They won't be in control anymore. And then the only thing left would be that they stay in business business, the government, just to protect us, we would become the most protected people ever on this planet. Because if the people in the armed forces aren't doing things right, we replace them because they're going against the prime law. All right. So we would now, since our taxes, since the taxes that we pay for this protection, just think about this. How good can we get? We would demand that they get the latest technologies. We would demand that they protect us to the hilt, including local governments and all. It would be tremendous. Nobody would want to mess with us because we'll take them down. It won't pay to be a criminal. It won't, because everybody's making money now. Imagine if you don't have to lock your doors anymore. And everybody feels safe and free. That's what this will do. Totally different than today, where every government agency has a police force. This is a police state, people. Okay? There's no doubt about it. Everything has a police force. So now, as we look at this, all genuine jobs, prosperity, and happiness in any society come from honest individuals and businesses. President Clinton has no concept of honesty or business. He never held or created a productive job in his adult life. He lived parasitically, and he drains those who produce jobs and values upon which the society depends on. And Clinton had that golden tongue. You know, he could just sweet talk you as he stabbed you in the back, and he has a smile on his face, and we all loved him. Everybody liked Clinton just about. But yet he was screwing us day in and day out. He had no principles. He had nothing. Why do you think Mark Hamilton had him living in Cuba, in Miss Annabelle? But as long as we have government-backed, taking away our freedoms, taking away all that, how can we ever break out of this? How can we ever be productive? How can we ever be creative? How can we start our own businesses? How can we make more money? It's never going to happen with government in the way. It will be basically the fully integrated honesty of neotech that will break these illusions. And that's what we have to concentrate on. Because everything out there is an illusion. And we have to start seeing through these illusions. And most people don't. They just follow. So we have to look at ourselves and say, what can we do? How do we get the TVP back? Well, that's going to take a long time. It's going to take a lot of people. It's going to take a lot of work. But it doesn't mean that we can't pull that off at some time in the relative future, short term. But right now we're stuck.
Well, if we stop having the fucking corruption and fucking lies, and people start telling the fucking honest truth about the 12 Visions Party, maybe we might get somewhere instead of having these dishonesty mentors like Jill Reed, Tom Carey, and others.
As much as you think you can.
So that's a load of shit.
Neotech and neothink. Because once you have that mentality of neothink and neotech, where's the next logical step? The 12 Visions Party. Okay, because if you woke up to somebody on the street today and said, hey, you know, if we have a thing here called the prime law, and it means that nobody can break laws. Nobody. Politicians, nobody. Everybody has to follow the same laws. And then all we would need is just protection and the government will supply. It would be a protection-only government. Otherwise, there'd be no government. And people look at you as if you have 5 eyes or something, because they can't comprehend having a life with no government interference. They never even thought about it. Because how many times did we ever think about it before we came here? You know, you can't, civilization can't survive under politicians. And it's showing that more.
By the way, if you've been following the 12 Visions Party, if you think about it,
to get away from.
it's only a selective few that run the 12 Visions Party. It's never the broad base of the Neothink Society. If you think about it, it's only a select few.
They're doing it one at a time. They're not blowing up buildings, or they're not shooting down airplanes or anything like that. They're just killing us one at a time. People die of cancer every day. People die of drug overdose. People die from legal drugs, so-called. You know, our food's poison, our air's poison. The vaccine industry that's out of control. They actually, what this one guy wants to do, and he's a big shot with the vaccine industry, and what he wants to do, I don't think this will ever pass, at least not in the near future. If you're a parent, and if you don't have your kids vaccinated, they'll take away your kids, they'll throw you in jail, so you lose your job, you will lose your house, you lose all of your income. Now imagine that. Just someone thinking of that, just thinking about that, how sick can that individual be? Well, so they can fill our kids with these poisons? It's a sick, sick world out there, and it has to stop. And I'm going to stop now and let Juanita talk for a little bit.
Charlie, great job tonight, Charlie. Yeah, you really defined, for one thing, you know, I had to look up this boy politics, what boy, and thank you for explaining that to all of us tonight, because a 3-letter word, and I'm like, what in the heck is he talking about, boy? And I found a definition for it finally, but I was looking and digging, of course. And you're right about, we have to really understand the Neothink mentality to understand what the 12 Visions Party mentality would bring about. Because if we're not understanding the Neothink mentality of the value creation, of giving value instead of just taking out. And I really do love the 7 steps here that he the 7-point agenda about what it would take to bring the prime law to fruition, and how society would really go to that next dimension of living the life that we're meant to live. And also, as I was going through this, when he's talking about Clinton and how crafty he was, and I love what you said about the golden tongue, as they say. He just could he melted people down with his words, but his action is the total opposite. And Dr. Wallace had a way of really defining that and showing us how he did that. So we're not just looking at this going, well, that's what Dr. Wallace wrote. He actually defines it all down where we can all understand why he is looking at the Clintons the way he is. Because sometimes, some of us do not want to look at, oh, well, that's Bill Clinton. How could he do something like that? Well, his actions, like the footnote that Dr. Wallace pointed out, Clinton crafted words as Shakespeare's crafted words, crafted to put poison in everyone's ear, potions that make evil actions seem good and good actions seem evil. So he twisted everything around, which caused the nation to really flounder into an error that we all know what happened in history there. So it's just amazing that we have all this literature in front of us, and we have the blueprint to what would make the prime law, the 12 Visions Party, come to fruition. But like Charlie pointed out, we would all have to have that neo-think mentality, and also we would have a lot of work to do, which we've been programmed through years to let someone else do it for us, and that's the mentality shift in neo-think, that we have to roll up our sleeves. We have to give real honest value, like Charlie was pointing out about the job creations, hiring someone to do a road. If they didn't do a good job, then we have to replace them. So we all have to be responsible for our own values that we give out to society. And also I can give an example of today. I was over in Mexico. I go to Mexico to get my teeth work done because I get a value there. I have a dentist, and my parents, they taught me the principles and the values some years back. I had a dentist today. He had a temporary on me, but it's been months because I was overdue. And he said, "Do you know you need 6 crowns?" And I said, "Well," I said, "Yes." And then he could have told me that I need to pay for 6 crowns, but I reminded him that I already paid for 4 crowns. So he's honest, and honesty attracts honesty, and his work is genuine. And I love the part here where it talks about how the toll booth, and I thought about a toll booth. How can your compassion be like a toll booth? And you think about going through a toll booth, you just give them your money and go. And to have the genuine compassion, I know the Prime Law and the Neo-Think Society does have that genuine compassion. And with that, Charlie, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Good job. There's so much more here, but if everybody out there, if you can go back to chapter 19, Dumping Goy Politics, it's only about 6 or 7 pages, and read it, and underline every word that you don't know what it means. Because here, Frank R. Wallace was, as usual, there's a lot of words here, and I had to look them all up. So it kind of really helps when you understand his writings by understanding the words that he uses. It just makes it puts a lot of these pieces of the puzzle together by just understanding, why does he use this word all the time? Or why does he he uses these fancy words. I think he uses them because I think he looks at it and says, what's the best word that I can use here? What word's going to help tie in all these sentences? Or what one word here could tie in this paragraph? So when you do read him, just go through it and just find all the words that you don't know what they mean. Look them up. How do you pronounce them? You can find that on the internet too. It has the word, and you can hit the speaker, it tells you how to pronounce it. Because just in a couple of pages here, as I was reading this today, it's like, man, I forget what some of these words mean. I had to go back and look them up. That's right.
Yes.
And you have to have the dictionary ready.
Right.
You have to have the dictionary on speed dial.
Well, there was one there, Charlie, that I looked up, the tripartite, meaning the 3 parts, the 3 parties. And then he simplified it, depoliticized. And I had to crack up laughing because I go, oh my gosh, I went through all that looking that up. And then because I didn't want to go on until I understood what that tripartite meant.
Yeah, it's actually
so
pronounced.
I did it myself.
It's actually pronounced tripartite.
Yeah, tripartite.
Yeah. And yeah, because but it's just it really helps you understand when you understand the words that he uses, and it just ties in things. So it really helps you understand what all this means. And then he writes, like the Constitution of the Universe. I love that. I'd rather have that than the crime law. I think that sounds so much better. Constitution of the Universe. And it's so short and sweet. And it's right to the point. No initiatory force by anybody on anyone, unless it's in self-defense. Great. Just great stuff. It's amazing. I think if we would just, I'm going to go into rant for about 3 minutes here, or maybe a few more than that. I don't know. We have, and I've mentioned this many times before. We have to become visionaries. We have to see ourselves living in the civilization of the universe. We have to honestly look at it. I do it at least 3-4 times a week. I'll take something like a mini day time, 20 minutes, 25, whatever, and then I'll sit there and I'll see myself living in the sea of you. And then I'll start feeling what I think I would feel moving in there. And it really gets you excited. It gets you trying to imagine what the feeling is of being that free. And I know, sometimes I really stay there for a while, and I'm thinking, wow, what would it be like to just get up and do what you always were meant to do? You live in your essence. You got this big, beautiful house. Every day's peaceful. Nobody's screaming at each other. Nobody's shooting each other. Nobody's stealing from each other. There's no initiatory force anywhere. Anywhere. I don't know how that's going to feel. I can picture how it's going to feel, but I know if we ever get there, it's going to feel about 1,000,000 times better than what I think it is. Because we never even thought about it before until we got here. And then trying to get your head wrapped around that. It's like eventually people will live for a long, long time, if not forever. And how does that feel? How would life feel if we didn't have to worry about death? Because death affects us every day. Every day, death comes across our table. Either on TV, either somebody died in our family or a friend of ours died or something. It's always there. It's on TV all the time, either fact or fiction. It's always, always, always in our life. They throw it in our face every chance they get. Look at the movies the movies. Look how violent they are, and they're getting more violent. So I don't even know what that would feel like to wake up in the morning and say, wow. Imagine being born in a world where they won't know anything about death. This is how we have to start to think. Because if we don't, what's the purpose of us trying to get to the sea of you if we don't enjoy the feelings that we get from it now? What's the point of reaching your goal if you don't think about how it's going to feel when you do it? You need a motivation to stay on track. Now, in my coaching, I talk to people, and a lot of them are still working, and they hate their job and all, like everybody else does, basically. And then they have to do the many days at night to start it. And I said, they said, boy, I'm having a hard time with this many day at night because I'm tired when I get home, and I said, I know. I said, but you got to look at it this way. How can you get yourself pumped up by the time that you get home from work if you don't know how you're going to feel? I said, so when you walk out the door from work and you walk to your car or you walk to the bus station or the trolley or whatever, how do you think it's going to feel that last day that you have to work there? Because now you're going to start your own business. Or now your business is rolling and making enough money that you can finally quit. How do you think that's going to feel? And then there's always dead silence because they haven't thought about it that much. And then all of a sudden it hits them. Oh, geez, Joey, I'm going to feel, I don't even know. I'm going to feel so great. And they start to talk, but they can't get the right words because their mind's spinning now because that's what they're thinking about. I said, now think about this. You leave work, and that you gave him the 8 hours. He's paying you, but now it's your time. The rest of the night is your time. So now you can do what you want. So how do you motivate yourself driving home that you're going to do your mini days tonight? Well, thinking about how good it's going to feel. So you're all excited about that. So then you go, then you get home, and I said, do you eat when you get home normally? Yeah, I usually eat first. I said, all right. So let's say now you go home and dinner's waiting because maybe your wife or your husband is cooking it or whatever, or you have to cook. It doesn't matter. But let's say now dinner's over, and what's your schedule for tonight? And they used to tell me, well, I got to do this for an hour. I got to do this for half hour, whatever. I said, all right. But how are you going to keep motivated? I said, obviously you're tired, but you're not going to feel as tired if you're excited. Enthusiasm. You've got to get excited that you have the feeling now of what it's going to be like for you to run your own business, for you to be your own person. And that's going to keep you motivated. Because, you get home, you're tired, and some nights you might not do any many days. And, it's not that's up to you, but you got to start looking at this and saying, how do I keep myself moving? Well, think about how good it's going to feel. Because in the morning when you get up, are you feeling really excited about going to work? Oh, I can't wait to get there so I can do the same boring thing I did yesterday, the day before that, and the day before that. So we have to start thinking about the future. We have to, so that we can stop these Goyim politics. All right, so we can get rid of politicians who are just total pieces of crap, to put it bluntly. I have no respect for any of them. I think they're all just full of crap, and they do nothing but make our lives more miserable. And that's why we're so broke half the time, because they're taking our money, and all they want to do is take more and more and more of it.
12 Visions Party's not no better.
It's time to do the healing list.